The Liberal Party, in their infinite wisdom and now campaign to win the next election, have come up with a strategy to fix the economy that they've largely destroyed. Increase taxes on more Canadians. That's right. Now, the Liberals have been posting their L's. I don't know if they're doing this intentionally, but this is their strategy on X for some reason. I posted this, the Liberals posting their L's. This is actually a telltale sign of where the election is going, the next election anyway. They're showing two articles here. March 8th, Pierre Poilievre says that corporate lobbyists in Ottawa are utterly useless. And then on March 26th, corporate lobbyists are flocking to Pierre Poilievre's Cash for Access fundraiser. Now, they call it a Cash for Access fundraiser because he's fundraising by having a fundraiser. And of course, all the lobbyists are flocking to that. Now, I've talked about this before on the channel that, you know, we'll see where the election's going when you see where all the lobbyists are the most connected people in Ottawa. They kind of know where the next election's gonna go, and well, they're largely funding the winning party. This is how they do things. Now, in their infinite wisdom, again, the Liberal Party are coming out with their new strategy to combat this economic downturn. You know, after 9 years of having them running the country, they're saying, well, it's not their fault, but we got the solutions, and here we go. Here's some of our solutions.
I think the opposition is recognizing that there is concern and anxiety out there. The thing is, though, they're not offering any solution at all for it. And I believe, I mean, the biggest choice and the biggest difference between me and the Conservatives right now is they don't think government has a role to play in solving for these problems and these challenges. And I think government can't solve everything, and nor should it try. But it can make sure that if the system isn't working for young people, that we rebalance the system. Market forces are not going to do that at all. Like, one of the things we did in this budget, we're doing in this budget, is we're raising capital gains. So the wealthiest 0.1% pay a little more. Capital gains will still be lower than they are in California and New York, for example. So it's not going to go after innovation, but it's bringing in money so we can actually invest more in young people, in fairness, in those kinds of things. And that's something that the Conservatives are totally against.
Raising taxes on more Canadians. And we're not going after innovation. We're not exactly an innovation hub in Canada. And we're not attracting any by raising taxes on innovators, people who are the 0.1% in the country or from other countries that would love to come here. Now, this is not a new concept from left-leaning politicians to raise taxes at times when they need more revenue. But we know this from history that, well, raising taxes doesn't actually contribute to more revenue, and this has been known for some time. Here's a segment of a cartoon from Freedom Tunes where they're talking about specifically this.
Tax cuts led to a revenue increase. The deficit only went up because spending outpaced growth. A revenue increase? How is that possible? So if the government taxes at 0%, its revenue will be 0%. If it taxes at 100%, its revenue will also be 0% because no one's going to work for money they can't have. At some point, higher taxes mean less productivity, so cutting them can result in an increase in revenue. This concept is often referred to as the Laffer curve.
The Laffer curve? Isn't that just neoliberal voodoo that some guy wrote on a napkin in the 80s?
No, it's much older than that. As early as 1381, Ibn Khaldun observed that at the beginning of a dynasty, taxation yields a large revenue from small assessments. At the end of the dynasty, taxation yields a small revenue from large assessments.
Okay, well, what about modern economists and not some libertarian dork from the 14th century?
Well, they all agree. That's the thing. I'll leave a link in the description down here. This is Common Sense Soapbox. Sorry, I said Freedom Tunes. But this is not a new concept. The Laffer curve, here's another great video from PragerU explaining how this works. Yes, you increase revenue, sorry, you increase taxes, of course, at the end of the dynasty. This is the end of the dynasty, Trudeau dynasty, of course. They're increasing taxes and they're going to get less revenue out of it. Why? Because, well, people are going to bail. People are going to get out of there. People are not going to, and not only that, productivity goes way down in that case as well. But here we have it, where the Toronto Star has published an article, and this is ridiculous. We are rich Canadians and we support higher capital gains taxes. They found a bunch of champagne socialists and they're showcasing them on this in this article. It's really, really cringy. But let's get into this. Ottawa wants to raise taxes on the Canada's ultra rich. Rich people like us want that too. We totally want that. Last week, Chrystia Freeland unveiled the 2024 federal budget, which includes increases to the capital gains tax inclusion rate that will impact an estimated 0.1% of Canadians. Those who make more than $250,000 in 1 year from the sale of an asset other than a principal residence. Now, this is not so innocuous. I mean, when you think about this, you're thinking about some rich guy who's just selling some asset that he has hanging around. No, these are businesses. These are entrepreneurs. Say a guy buys a storage facility for his business, and later he discovers he doesn't need it, or he can't afford it, so he sells it off. And he bought it with the business, he bought it with the corporation that he's founded for his business. Well, he sells off this asset. Now he's subject to capital gains tax on something that he already paid taxes on. He paid taxes, he bought it. This is the kind of thing that we're talking about. So don't be confused with this whole, like, some guy with a top hat and a monocle buying and selling luxury properties and getting dinged for a little bit of taxes. No, this is really, really going to hurt people's bottom lines in Canada. Right now, Canadians fortunate enough to be enjoying such a capital gain only pay on half of those gains, whereas wages, most people, how most people make their money, all those plebeians out there, are 100% included. So yeah, they want to essentially redistribute wealth, and this is what they're getting into. Now, True North wrote a counter article to this, and this is great. Taxpayer group refutes wealthy socialist op-ed demanding more taxes. The Toronto Star published an op-ed piece Monday from a group of wealthy and class-privileged socialists who are unsatisfied with the amount that they will be taxed after the 2024 budget was announced. The collectively written article, entitled "We Are the Rich Canadians and We Support the Higher Capital Gains Taxes," started by saying Ottawa wants to raise taxes for Canada's ultra-rich, and rich people like us want that too. The author of the piece supported the recent capital gains tax hike, which tech CEOs and other Canadian business leaders have opposed, but I think the tax doesn't go far enough. We wish Canada's tax was we wish Canada was taxing the rich more. We'd also like to see a super wealth tax, or an inheritance tax, which is again taxing money that's already been taxed, and progressive property taxes. But we support this step. Let us pay our fair share, they wrote. In an interview with True North, Franco Terrazzano, the federal director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, refuted the claims made by the authors of a piece, said these people should just send money to the government. Send them a check if they want to give more to the government, rather than pushing the government to hammer Canadians with higher taxes to pay for government's wasteful spending, he said. And what better place than to look at the Taxpayers Federation to talk about wealth, the horrible spending that they've been doing. Is this what you want to happen with your money, that you're taxing more on people? Trudeau drops nearly $200,000 on airplane food during a 6-day trip. Yeah, this is the kind of money that they're spending. They just need more revenue. That's all they need. They don't need to cut their spending at all. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his entourage dropped $190,000 of taxpayer money on airplane food, just on airplane food, during a tour of the Indo-Pacific region last fall, according to access to information records obtained by the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. They don't want to just give this information out. You've got to lobby for it. You got to get it. The taxpayer tab was $1.9 million for the 6-day trip. This is what we're dealing with in Canada, and they want to raise our taxes. And this is where it's at. Now, what's the the reaction going to be? What's the inverse sort of scenario that's going to happen? Well, largely we're going to lose doctors. And this is a great interview posted by a CBC watcher here on X. And I mean, you just hear this. This is the result of this.
There has been some pushback that this could affect family doctors and other professionals who incorporate their practice for the tax advantages that a corporation would have. So while individually, if they were, say, working, you know, in a hospital, they would not necessarily be affected by the new capital gains inclusion. But if their corporate structure is such that they're relying on corporate investments to pay for their future and their retirement, they're going to be hit. And that in a country that's already struggling to have enough family doctors, this creates a disincentive for some of them to work in Canada.
We recognize that, but one of the things that we will continue to do is encourage foreign credential recognition to help we know that coming out of the pandemic, our healthcare has really been hampered and there's a really challenge with labor, but the investments we made with foreign credentialing, we've already made a significant investment in previous budgets, and in this year we've topped that up, and we will continue to invest to ensure we're encouraging bringing talent from other countries to get their credentials recognized, and that will also encourage them to get more jobs here and fill the desperate labor market needs that are required in our healthcare industry.
So it didn't even address the question by saying, so doctors are largely going to leave the country because they're going to be taxed too much. This is the reality of the situation. They're going to leave the country. Canada won't get that revenue, so it's not even revenue neutral. You're taxing people, so they leave, they bail. We no longer have their services. We no longer have their expertise in our country. The brain drain is real, but then we also don't even get the tax revenue. We don't even get the thing that they're going after them for. And what's the answer? Well, we're just going to open up immigration so we can get more doctors from other countries. This is absurd. This is absolutely absurd. And she doubles down on this.
And I understand the impetus to try to accelerate health professionals in particular to be able to work in Canada through the standard. But if doctors who are here now, who are set up through the existing corporate structure that relies heavily on capital gains income for their retirement and for their future, because they wouldn't have a pension in this sort of a situation, if they balk at the situation that has been created by this change, I mean, how do you deal with that? The goal is to not increase the gap in medical coverage, right? So how do you respond to the concerns being raised by people in that sector that this is potentially punitive to them?
If I take a step back to what I mentioned earlier, and you heard the Prime Minister said it, what we're really trying to do is really create a Canada that is fair for every generation. If we think about all the benefits that will help for young Gen Z.
Platitudes, fair for every generation. And again, going back to what they do best, divide and conquer. So now where's the division? Well, let's divide the classes. Let's divide the generations. Let's say that the young people, they have it bad because the older people had it so much better before. It's their fault. It's not the government's fault for raising taxes, causing these problems, causing all this trouble in the economy. No. It's somebody else. Blame, and then come in and swoop in and have all the answers for this. But anyway, I don't have all the answers. Some of you guys have the answers. Leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think. And as of course, we'll see you in the next one. Keep on trucking.